easy to make people happy. Anyway, I think there's probably different level of sophistication in this crowd about like what dYdX is. So I'll try to spend very little time kind of describing like what perpetuals are and vaguely what our previous protocol was that's still running, and then try to get to the exciting stuff at the end, such as the next iteration to the dYdX protocol. We haven't had much time in our history to really iterate on our product. We kind of just went from launching like a DEX aggregator to an L1 margin protocol to an L2 perps protocol to now V4. So we're really excited that we can have this infrastructure of this chain that we can build on for the next decade. And I think we're launching something at the end of the year that's really going to 10x the protocol. So yeah, the theme of this protocol and theme of dYdX generally just power to the traders. So current state of affairs. This is not working, by the way, the TV down here. So current state of affairs of dYdX chain, we launched on November 13th. Since then, we've done about $40.6 billion in volume, which is pretty amazing for an app chain launching in the first 2-3 months. We've done $7.2 million in net fees. 100% of those net fees have been distributed to validators and stakers, those validators in Noble USDC, so cold hard cash. There's about $80 million in USDC open interest on the protocol. And currently dYdX V4, the dYdX chain, sits at about 1% global perpetuals protocol volume, or of all perpetuals. And V3, the Ethereum L2 chain, also sits at about 1%. So dYdX total is about 2% of global perpetuals volumes. So what is the dYdX chain? Taking a step back, dYdX is a perpetuals protocol. Our previous protocol was built on this custom matching engine called StarkX, built by the Starkware team. L2, zero knowledge proof rollup on Ethereum. To date, that protocol has done about $1 trillion in volume and does about $1 million in revenue weekly. The team historically has taken that revenue. Obviously, we have revenue shares with other partners, but we're really excited about the dYdX chain as 100% of protocol revenues are going to validators. It's weird because you see on Twitter that like Uniswap is now thinking about a rev share, and then you keep saying seeing when dYdX rev share. I think there's like a mismessaging that dYdX is sharing 100% of their protocol revenues with the community. So it's pretty amazing, and I feel like there's still a lack of transparency there. So dYdX chain was kind of the next iteration of the protocol because StarkX matching engine that we were originally built on has a decentralized sequencer. And Starkware hasn't decentralized their sequencer. So we truly wanted to be a permissionless, decentralized protocol that's censorship resistant. So thinking about the amount of throughput you need for an order book perpetuals protocol and have an API with high throughput, the app chain is really the only way for us to go with this unique architecture where you have these off-chain order books, which I'll talk about in a second. So that led us about 1.5 years ago on this adventure to build an app chain. And yeah, it's been really great ever since. There's a lot of great partners in the ecosystem. So the dYdX chain is built on Comet BFT proof of stake. It uses the Cosmos SDK. We have a bunch of custom modules, such as a cloud module, pricing module, basically custom modules that enable the trading functionality of the dYdX protocol on top of the dYdX chain. It's completely open sourced. It's decentralized end to end. dYdX Trading Inc., that is the developers of the open source software, takes no part in the actual deployment of the dYdX chain, in the token governance. The foundation leads that. And the front end is not hosted by us either. So there's 3 types of front ends. We have a mobile app we just launched last week. We have a web front end and then also an API. And all of those are fully decentralized from end to end. Like I said, there's lightning fast data that comes from this indexer product that we built, which I'll talk about in the architecture slide. And then we obviously have custom MEV solutions as well as 100% protocol revenue share. So the architecture of the dYdX chain, we have a bunch of validator nodes that host the protocol. The life cycle of an order is that there are these off-chain order books that are hosted in the internal memory of every node in the network. So if you think of like an order book DEX or like a protocol generally, the bottleneck to any consensus to any blockchain is its consensus mechanism, right? Because you can only have orders as fast as consensus can occur. So with like a block time of 1 to 2 seconds, that's not fast enough for these high frequency traders that are trading at the order of like 100 to 200 milliseconds. So to solve this, the dYdX chain hosts order books off-chain in the internal memory of every single validator node in the network. And there might be some thoughts that there's discrepancies between these nodes. And how we reconcile that is for each time new block is minted, the proposer will propose these blocks, consensus will occur, and we have a bunch of unique MEV mechanisms, such as this MEV dashboard that has consistently already tracked MEV, and then social mitigation strategies, such as being able to slash nodes. But in the future, we hope with the new upgrades to the Cosmos SDK, such as block extensions, to be able to have more robust MEV solutions that will allow kind of multiple validators to come together and retroactively change blocks if MEV is seen, which we think would be a lot more robust than these social mitigation mechanisms that we have so far. So yeah, the indexer system is where the front end is hosted. dYdX, you could have a full node, and then a validator node is just a full node that also has a proposer tied to it. So product highlights with some of our great partners. So recently, most of this has shifted in the past 2 months, but we have custom MEV dashboard with these social mitigation strategies. We co-host that with Skip Protocol. We have one-click onboarding with Axelar and Squid, which also is now enabled primarily by CCTP on Noble. So the CCTP module on Noble allows for basically riskless asset transfer between origination chain and destination chain. So you could basically burn USDC on any origination chain and then mint it on the Noble chain, so you don't have any contract risk from wrapping the token. You could just IBC that to dYdX, and then using the Squid router, we're allowed to just basically automatically route that to the dYdX chain from any origination chain. We have a native mobile app that we launched last week. That's really cool. I recommend you checking that out. We now have direct deposits from Coinbase, and in about 2 months, we'll actually have IBC forwarding enabled from Coinbase. So you'll be able to input a dYdX chain address on Coinbase Exchange, and that'll automatically route to your dYdX account. And then we have a fiat on-ramp as well with Kato, and that's actually also enabled through Noble. So basically, the story I want to paint is on dYdX, you can trade like a sophisticated trader, you can trade anything, and then you also completely own the protocol. So those are the 3 tiers I want to go through in today's keynote. So on the ownership side, dYdX is fully open source. dYdX Trading Inc. is an open source software provider and has no say in the deployment of this protocol. Anyone can make their own deployment and eventually have their own validator set if they wanted to. dYdX chain is fully non-custodial, and we see the theses of these non-custodial exchanges popping up more and more after we see what happens with FTX, Binance. Everyone knows that story. The dYdX chain revenues are all owned by you, so 100% of protocol revenues go to validators and stakers. And then you completely own all of the decisions made for the dYdX chain through governance. And there's pretty cool case studies of this already with some of the market listings that have happened in the past couple weeks. So the next pillar, pro trading for everyone. So on dYdX, we allow advanced order types everywhere from hopefully eventually up to bracket orders, but currently limit, stop orders, whatever you need on a full order book DEX with a CLOB. You could trade up to 20x leverage in the major pairs and 10x leverage in some of the longer tail pairs. And there's 3 user interfaces that are all built from the ground up, all purpose built. So the mobile app team at dYdX is in a separate vertical from the team building the web app, which is in a separate vertical from the team building the API. These are all built through first principles from the ground up with different user bases, obviously, because you have the sophisticated traders trading off the API, and then a lot of the retail traders either using the web app or the mobile app as well. So yeah, the same sophisticated tools as professional traders. And then this is the thing we're most excited about. So like I said, the story of dYdX started back when we were basically just a DEX aggregator. And people don't know this, but dYdX actually invented the first DEX aggregator. And then we invented flash loans. Then we built this L1 margin protocol, which we had 90% market share on Ethereum. And then Uniswap was invented, and then we went down to 1%. And it was like kind of like a crisis for us, like what do we do next? At that point, we decided to build this L2 perps protocol, which has done $1 trillion in volume, and then we now have launched the dYdX chain. But we've never had a chance to iterate on this product at all and actually build new product features. So the big 10x product feature we're really excited about this year is this thing called Trade Anything. And it kind of started in a very small way in the last couple of weeks, which is really not in a state we're happy with just yet. But we built this markets module and already listed about 10 to 15 markets in the past couple of weeks, where you could basically go on dYdX. Anyone with up to about 2,000 tokens could go on the exchange, pick from the markets that have already be pre-risk justified, and then pick a liquidity tier. And the liquidity tier basically will justify or determine how much leverage you could trade on that market at launch. But yeah, this is fully centralized and not in a great place because the dYdX trading team is looking at risk factors and choosing which markets that you could choose to list on these in a permissionless form. And then there's also like the three-day governance time. So you choose a market to list, and then it takes 72 hours for voting to happen. But that's not true permissionless markets. True permissionless markets looks like if any market is listed on pretty much any exchange, it can automatically be listed by anyone on the dYdX chain with no time, and also pre-market stuff like that. So this has been really cool because we weren't really listing any markets before, but you see these tokens like Stark launching, and then our competitors are able to launch those markets within an hour, and then it takes 4 days to launch those markets on dYdX chain, which for the life cycle of some of these meme coins, not saying Starkware is a meme coin, but for some of these meme coins trading cycles last for like less than 3 or 4 days anyway. So this is what we're most excited about. Imagine a world where any digital asset pair that exists on any AMM or pretty much any market across any chain can be traded instantly on the dYdX chain and the dYdX protocol. So we're still working on architecture here, but we truly believe this is one of the use cases that are uniquely enabled by DeFi, being able to trade anything with leverage with sophisticated trading tools right at market launch. So imagine a market's listed on Uniswap or Osmosis. It doesn't really matter what chain it is because you don't have to deal with bridge risk because it's a perpetual, right? It's a derivative contract. Now this market's listed, and then at launch, one of the biggest issues is how do you bootstrap liquidity, right? So there's some weird architecture we're working out, but the goal is to incentivize market makers and also retail trading participants to participate in these markets early on. So you could imagine a market maker posting a bond or liquidity to a market really early on, and then earning in perpetuity a certain amount of revenues from that market. So like something like Pepe within the first day of launching, maybe it does what, like $10 million market cap because it's starting to launch, but now it's at about $500 million market cap. If you're a market maker and being able to get into these markets early, post a bond to that market, and in perpetuity earn a certain percentage of revenues to that market, it could be one of the biggest revenue streams for market makers to date. But how does retail get involved? And this is one of the most interesting things because there's huge risk opportunity when it comes to these new markets because new markets are extremely volatile. You don't want them to be cross-margin, so all these markets will have to exist in isolated collateral and isolated margin. But there's also collateral risk there because market makers only have a certain amount of collateral, so there's collateral constraints in trading in isolated markets. So you have these incentives from the protocol and from the markets in perpetuity, but another thing we're thinking is having vaults. So imagine a market lists and it doesn't show up on the UI, but it automatically exists on dYdX. So a new market spun up on Uniswap, right? Anyone can create a market. As long as someone's hosting that price oracle, which means if it's on Uniswap, it already exists and there's a price tied to it, you have a vault that pops up through the API on dYdX. And what we're thinking right now, and we haven't announced any of this publicly, so this is the first time anyone's talking about it, but to have 3 different vaults. So you have a bear vault, a crab vault, and a bull vault. And basically, people who enter these new meme coins early want to accumulate a leveraged long position in these markets. So imagine like Pepe coin launches early, you deposit to the bull vault. The bull vault will run market making strategies across the protocol, right, and across these markets, especially the ones that exist in isolated collateral, and then it will slowly try to accumulate a bullish position, let's say 2x leverage, right? The bear vault will try to do the opposite, try to accumulate a 2x negative correlation, short position to the underlying market market, and this crab vault will just try to stay risk neutral. But this is a really good way where early on you could bootstrap liquidity and incentives to these new markets. And yeah, incentives is another way, a really great way to bootstrap liquidity to these markets. But kind of the end goal here is to like look at what can the dYdX chain do in its current state to 10x and truly enable users to be able to trade anything on its platform. Because today there's no protocol that allows you to sophisticatedly trade new markets. So we're really excited about these trading vaults. Look out for announcements in the next 6 months. And yeah, that's pretty much it.